Quitting porn is actually very easy. You just have been doing it all wrong. You gotta understand when it comes to quitting any behaviors in the first place, you've probably left a lot of what people consider to be bad habits. For example, for me, I used to play video games up to 16 hours a day sometimes. On average, I would play at least 10 hours a day. And that was before I started watching porn. That was also something that I would do way more when it comes to the frequency, when it comes to overall the time that I spent on video games. Yet the moment I decided that, you know what, like video games is not really something which is serving me anymore, and that there's better things in life that I could actually pursue that would actually move the needle forward for me, I just completely left video games within a few weeks. But with porn, with masturbation, it's not the same, right? I struggled to just quit. And this is what I see many people, for example, that I talk to struggle with this for 10 years. Now, when I say they struggle with this, I don't mean just like they've been watching porn for 10 years, but they've been trying to quit for 10 years. They've been trying to quit for 15 sometimes 20 years. And it hasn't worked yet. The reason is, and this is very simple, we've been, when it comes to porn and masturbation, it is one of the only behaviors which we adopted the recovery and overall the addiction ideology and just really put it on porn and masturbation. And so what happened exactly is we've been interpreting our decision and overall the sessions, the porn that we've consumed in the past and everything differently. When I interpreted the way that I play video games, the way that I interpreted that was, it was something which I liked doing because it gave me some form of pleasure. It gave me some form of connections, relationships, because I would play with other people. I would play competitive games. So I felt like I would be able to really just compete and, win competitions and have this sense that I'm achieving and that I'm progressing and I'm also dominating people. But when it comes to porn, how we see it is, it's not, oh, we've been doing it because we felt like it was pleasurable and because we were curious about it and everything. People instead, what do they tell you? They say, no, you've been watching porn because you have an addiction, because your brain is so messed up that the dopamine receptors are not working anymore, or whatever they say. And because of that, whenever we decide to watch porn again, instead of being like, oh yeah, I just watched it because I wanted to get some form of pleasure. It's no big deal. I'm going to repent and just like move on from this. Instead, we see it as this is a big failure. This is where like a lot of the shame comes from. People believe that, okay, I've watched it again, so that means I'm probably not going to be able to quit now or later. And so they have that fear now, and that creates more shame and guilt. So what you got to realize basically, okay, is that we need to start adopting. This is why it's so easy. This is why it's effortless to quit porn and masturbation, right? This is why I claim that, and based on the people I've coached, many of them just completely left porn and masturbation behind, and obviously every case is different. Not everyone like managed to just like quit porn and masturbation within, for example, like the first 2 weeks of learning the new information. But what you gotta realize, the reason why it's so effortless is because, look, it's all mental. I know it sounds cliche for me to say, it's like, all mental, it's 90% mental, 10% physical. The reality is, if it's all mental, then that means that you have full control over it. There's no external forces that is going to force you to watch porn or masturbate. You do that by your own will, okay? This is the thing. But with overall the recovery ideology, this porn recovery movement, which in my book, I really exposed in depth in chapter 1, we've been just overall told that like, okay, yeah, you watch porn, you masturbate, but it's not because of your own will. It's not because you make the decision, because why would you make such a decision if it's costing you relationship, if it's costing you your relationship with God, if it's costing you, you missing out on opportunities? And yes, of course, maybe it's costing you those things. I'm not denying that. I've seen it happens, time and time again. Of course, if you constantly distract yourself with porn, masturbation, lust, then your life is not going to change. It's probably going to get worse, right? We're not going to deny that. But the problem, okay, with the overall way that we've been perceiving porn and masturbation is that we simply been overall looking at it as if we had a disease, as if we had a huge problem. When in reality, this is just a decision that you make because you believe that porn is going to benefit you in certain moments in your day. It's really that simple. And then once you challenge really those reasons as to which you watch porn and masturbate, you'll see how easy is it to just move on from that. Okay? And on top of that, of course, we've been also told from the porn industry that, like, for example, porn is going to be able to give you that substitutes because you're not in a relationship right now, you're not having intimacy, so porn is going to give you that in the moment being, right? But obviously these are lies, right? These are empty promises. Every single time you do it, you're not feeling like, oh my god, man, I just received some love, I received some validation, I just connected with another human being. Of course you don't get that, right? But that's the thing. The number one thing also is people are in fear because of the porn recovery movement. When I left video games behind, I didn't think, oh my god, my brain is so messed up, man. I've spent more time playing video games than playing real life at that point, right? When I used to play a lot of video games. And I didn't think like, oh my god, my brain is so messed up, I'm not gonna be able to quit. I'm not going to be able to do anything about it. I'm gonna come back to it. I'm gonna relapse because my brain is craving dopamine from video games because this is what I played all of my life. I didn't think any of that. No, I just thought, oh yeah, I played video games for these specific reasons. Now it doesn't make sense because I want to pursue a different life. So let me just leave it behind. And I drastically reduced my usage. And then at one point after a few weeks, I realized like, this is pretty useless. Let me just move on from it. That's it. But with porn and masturbation, we're like, we get told, oh, if you see a beautiful woman on Instagram, you're probably going to just, fall back into it and just end up going on porn without your own free will, right? And that you're, going to have these biological urges to watch porn and masturbate because apparently on these porn sites you can see so many naked women. It's as if like you were a king back then that had access to all of these women, and that's biologically appealing, right? Whatever nonsense they tell us. And so as you see, this creates this internal struggle because now what happens is like we're in fear because we're like, oh, basically what we believe is, I don't have the power. Porn, lust, urges, whatever, masturbation has the power over us. That's what we literally believe. We literally believe that a woman wearing not many clothes, right? The half-naked woman, for example, on Instagram, holds more power over us than ourselves. We literally give the power to these videos. We literally give the power to these images. And obviously we give our own power. So we're just left, and when I say power, I'm not saying like you're all powerful and you can do anything that you want in your life, right? As if you were a deity. Of course not. I'm talking about like your ability to choose, your ability to have free will, your ability to be relentless, your ability to do so many things in life. If you just, I know it sounds very cliche to say, but if you just look at like a few hundred years ago or a few thousand years ago, and you see all of these guys going to war, right? And being able to just live through the harshest conditions, right? And even still to this day, people living in a war, being victims and everything. Yet we complain because we see a woman that wears, revealing clothing, and that it makes us relapse. Like, just put it into perspective, right? I'm not saying just man up, toughen up. But what I'm saying is, stop believing in all of these, NoFap lies that, you're gonna have to fight this addiction for so many years, and it's going to be so hard because you've been watching for so long, and you probably have trauma, and you're not in a relationship, so you're not having sex, and you have all of these weird fetishes. Like, look, what happens is, like I said, you're in so much fear that what happens, you don't naturally move on from that behavior when you want to because you're constantly overthinking. And of course, if you're constantly overthinking and you're in fear, then you're not thinking properly, first of all. So that means you're probably going to take emotional decisions when it comes to this. and you're probably not going to be able to solve. And that's the thing, humans are very good at solving problems by their own, right? Like, for example, if I have to pay rent tomorrow and I don't have any money, I'm gonna find a way. If I don't distract myself and just go behind my screen and watch porn, I'm gonna find a way to solve that problem, right? Because I have to, basically, and humans are extremely capable with their own mind because we have a developed consciousness. We're not animals living on instincts where it's like, you gotta eat at, when you have those instincts, you gotta go and reproduce when you have those instincts. No, we have the cognitive layer, meaning that we can choose, we can literally think in the future. Animals cannot do that, right? We can literally think of building, big buildings, for example. We can think of building a business. We can think of, doing specific things that would make no sense for an animal to do, or at least biologically. But apparently we're at the mercy of our own innate desire for a woman, not even for porn and masturbation, but for women, and we falsely translate or falsely interpret that desire for women and say, oh, porn and masturbation can solve that, can substitute that, can satisfy that, so let me go towards that, right? We've been lied to, and this is why it's been hard. We're not thinking properly. We're not, solving. We have the ability to solve problems within our own mind. We're not even doing that because we're in so much fear. We're like, oh my God, what if I relapse again? And then we make all of our lives, or at least a big portion of our lives, we're constantly thinking about how many days am I free from this? How many days am I not free from this? What if I get triggered? What if I go on social media and there's this? Should I delete social media? Should I do this? Should I watch this video? No. You gotta realize, stop, let go of all of this, porn recovery movement and move on. Naturally move on. And you'll see how easy it truly is. And when I say easy, I'm not saying like, it will require for you to do specific actions. No, humans naturally move on when they want to move on from this. It's just that you've been fed all of these lies over these years.